The thing that's scary about current Yu-Gi-Oh, and I know this doesn't matter as much for like Frazier, for example, because he's living comfortably. But I think even for anybody have a full time job, current Yu-Gi-Oh is still really fucking expensive. Like
Yes.
the cards and like building a full deck can easily net you over $1,000. Like
Oh, I think if I wanted to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh tomorrow, like if I wanted to start, I could have my friend Xavier give me a deck, but it's gonna cost me a stack.
yeah,
Because I first of all, like everyone knows, I'm very competitive, so I'm gonna want to play the best deck. So I'm probably gonna play Sprite if that is the best deck, and I assume it is. And that deck is expensive. Like I can already tell, like deck is just expensive. I also need an extra deck. I would need all the side deck cards that I don't have. Like I was looking at, for example, yesterday I was watching top 8 deck profiles of people who top regionals because this is the first weekend of Power of the Elements, and I'm really interested to see what's doing well because sometimes Japanese meta does not translate well over here. For example,
we just have different
everyone
cards and like different ban lists. It just doesn't quite work out.
it doesn't work. So people thought Brave PK was going to be the best deck over here, and it just flopped. Like that deck was ass. And our best deck was just different. So I was wondering if Sprite was going to be the real deal when I got over here. Clearly it is. It's actually very good. But I was watching top 8 deck profiles, and I was like, I wonder how much Pot of Prosperity costs, because everyone was playing 3 of it. And my one friend who was sitting right next to me, he's a modern Yu-Gi-Oh player. He was like, oh, they're like 150. I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
Because at first I was saying, like, I wonder how much it would cost to get a Sprite deck or whatever. And I said, I know it would be at least 1,000, but now I think it would be well over $1,000 because just 3 pots, if I play that card, would be like $400 on
Yep.
the lower end.
I was looking at them when I was buying my Edison format cards because I also wanted to buy just like a Dragon Maid deck.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh my fucking god. I was like, this card's absurd. I was like, I'm not spending this much money for fun.
yeah. And for me, the thing is, I don't know if I'll ever be able to commit to Yu-Gi-Oh the way I once did because I'm just in a different place in my life. And I really do like doing this. Like I love this actually. I love interviewing people. I love having you guys on. You guys are my friends. Like it's just really cool to talk about the times when we were all great and also how we even got into the game and stuff like that.
And when some of us are still great, like TJ or Hansel,
Hansel,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, and
TJ, how did you even get into Yu-Gi-Oh?
Oh, so I played when I was in elementary school.
So
I
basically,
I
like in
can
this picture.
tell.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can tell.
I think I like
Wait,
started going to locals and playing like competitive decks when Strike of Neos came out.
in all seriousness, do you know, if you don't mind me asking, how old you? Do you remember how old you were in 2015? How
I
old
was
were you when you
18.
won? You're 18 here?
Yeah, I
Okay.
No
remember a lot of people
fucking
online
way.
joked I was like 14 or 15. No, I was a senior in high school.
In all
Holy
seriousness,
shit.
for everyone listening to this podcast right now, if you do not know what TJ Kinsley looks like, please Google TJ Kinsley Yu-Gi-Oh. This is what I did to find the picture. He's holding up the prize card and his trophy, and he looks every bit 11. Like,
Yeah,
not a
honestly,
day over 11. He looks like he could fit in Stranger Things. Like, he
not
could be
yes.
cast in Stranger Things and be completely normal.
Yeah, like if I 1,000,000% had to be as generous as possible, like no older than 13. Like that's hell
Max.
yeah. Dude, you're gonna look great when you're 60. All right, you're
I
gonna
hope
look
so.
you're gonna look fucking great.
God, I hope so.
Okay, so you were telling us how you got into it.
Yes, yes. So I
Striker
remember
Neos.
Strike of Neos was I think the first sneak peek I went to when I was a kid, and I played Six Samurais.
Hell yeah, I
Um,
love that deck.
then I remember it was like PC Monarchs and Gladiator Beast, and then like Dad Return. Obviously, I think I was like 9 or 10, so I couldn't afford those decks.
Yeah.
Um, I would say I first like started really playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively in like 2011 again.
Okay.
Um,
So that's agents, plants, etc.
it was like the end of 2011 when Billy won. That's when
Okay,
I
so
started
yeah,
playing.
agents, plants, then Karakuri a little bit and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think I played Agents because it was an affordable deck. I was like freshman in high school or something.
Yeah,
2012, it was like Rabbit, Wind Up,
Insector,
Mm.
dragons.
Hector, Chaos Dragons. Yeah, so that's when I started like really playing competitively and like going to regionals a lot and going to YCSs like at least locally at the time.
Yeah.
Um, I started traveling to events in Mermail format 2013. I remember YCS Austin was the first event I flew to. Obviously, I did terrible. I wasn't I wasn't that good. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't a DN grinder or anything yet. So I didn't know a lot of rulings. I didn't know anything besides like the basic combos of any deck.
Yeah.
Um, I would say I started really like playing DN shortly after when Dragon Rulers came out, as most people did. That was the peak of DN. You had people from the woodworks playing DN, people from Japan, people from Europe, Australia, all the
Yeah.
old players. Like I remember that Nationals was like the top 64 probably had 40 like actual names in it. Like I remember Utops,
Yep. Patrick
Silverman,
Hoban,
Hoban,
Silverman,
like
Furman.
even old
Ro-
players from like the SJC days like came out of the woodworks and played in that format and did well.
Yeah, that was one of the best top cuts. You said something that I want to ask you about though. That's very interesting. So you brought up DN a couple times in this interview so far,
Mhm.
and I want to ask you. So you won a YCS undefeated, and you told me that you were grinding like DN back then, Dueling Book as people know it now. You were grinding a lot. Do you think that that is something that's really important to being successful at Yu-Gi-Oh? Because the reason why I ask, a lot of the people who are doing well in 2022 and probably during the whole pandemic tend to be the DB grinder people, like the people who just fucking grind Dueling Book.
Yeah, I 100% believe DN is the best tool for learning and just getting better and grinding in general. Like some people, depending on where they live, aren't fortunate enough to go to great locals. Like I know you went to AU, you had Silverman, you had McCabe,
Yep.
Luke Feeney, Mark Velez. Like you had great people that went to your local. The
Yeah,
area
they're
I
all
live in,
extremely good.
like I live in New York, but I don't live in New York City, so I don't have Ponce at my local, Tamid, Guyton, Christian Georges, Carl Manigat. Like
Right.
I didn't have those people around me. So DN was my tool. I Skyped at the time because it was back in like
Yeah.
2013,
Oh,
2014.
I know about the Skype days. I love those days. I'll go back to the AIM days.
Oh
Oof, that's before
no.
my time.
So for people who
Not,
don't know
hold
what
on,
that is,
real quick. It's not really before your time because I remember me and Fraser were still using AIM. Like Skype was out and we were using Skype. We also were
yes.
still using AIM. Like I remember
Yeah.
having an AIM app on my phone.
Yep.
The fact that it lived that long is insane.
Yeah, AIM is throwing it all the way back. But yes, so yeah, people who don't have really high caliber players at their locals, it can't really improve outside of the internet, which is great that DB even exists, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's great that Dueling Network exists, that Dueling Book exists now, because it is a great tool. It just when I used to play it, I would try to climb the ladder a little bit, and Kenny knows this. I would have such terrible experiences because I think back then people just used it a lot to troll. They would get mad if they lost. They would go AFK. Uh, they didn't know their rulings. I have to call a judge all the time. So for me, it was very unpleasant. But this is also 2011, so it's
Yeah.
relatively new.
Mhm.
And I guess where it's at right now, people probably take it a lot more seriously as far as climbing the
Well,
actual ladder goes.
I wanna
And
I wanted to draw like an allude like two. There's two things that we've brought up that I wanted to talk about in comparison, like fighting games. Something that's interesting is I know Dueling Network, especially when it first started happening. Uh, there was a lot of people that made fun of people that played Dueling Network or like that only
yes,
the
Yep.
DN, and they were like, like he's not a real Yu-Gi-Oh player. He's just like an online warrior. And there was like this level of disrespect for like DN players versus people that like went to regionals and stuff. And the same thing kind of happened in fighting games and kind of still does, where like if you're an online warrior, you're not like a real tournament player and you can't get really good being an online warrior. But as the years have gone on, we've seen people break through that, and people that are just online warriors grind a ton of DN or grind a ton of ranked on a fighting game. They go out and they end up winning a tournament, and people are like, "Holy shit!" And it starts to happen more and more, and you start to realize that it's like these people just get to play hundreds of games at 2 a.m. when like in situations where you can't possibly be playing, and they get to play so much more and get so much more experience. So it's a really good resource in that way.
I
Yeah.
agree. And I can even say as a person who observes a lot of Smash Bros, Smash Ultimate to be exact, Spargo, who's currently the second best player in the world, and he was non-existent before the pandemic. He came out of nowhere as far as everyone's concerned because he was an online warrior only. He only played online, but he was the best player in the online world. He was
Yeah,
just like MKLeo before the pandemic, best player, no question, number one. And then the pandemic happens. There are no more tournaments in person. Every tournament is online. MKLeo is still, I think he's like top two. right? So he's like not number one, but he's number two and online. But then the kid who's number one, everybody's like, oh, I can't wait until real events come back because this kid's going to be a nobody.
Yeah, people are like, he's going to get fucking 50 second, and it's like, okay.
And then when the online events went away and offline events came back, in-person events, Spargo came back and he literally became the second best player in the entire world. And it's absurd to watch because, again, he started off online. And so, like, what Kenny said is actually great. We see this in fighting games. Now we're seeing it in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the people put in a lot of time on DB are just killing the tournament scene. Like, they are absolutely dominating. There's so many names that just come out and it's like, oh yeah, this guy plays on DB all day. Like, this is what he does.
Yep. Even back then, like, I was fortunate enough to network and meet a lot of good people who also played DN. Like, I remember the main group I had was Tamid, Ponce, Christian Georges, Tyree, Furman, Denny, Marcus. Like, some of the people who during that time were like the best players, and we would literally just Skype in DN like every day. Theory, play the new deck, play rated, just everything.
I love those big group sessions where you're just in like a call with a bunch of people and you just talk shit on each other.
A big Discord call or back then Skype call is so fucking fun.
Oh, so good.
And back then, out of all those names, all those people had tops, they had wins.
Yep.
Like, I was the only one without it, so I got most of the shit.
Oh, yeah, you would have been that guy. We did that to Furman, and then he became like the best player in the world.
That's what happens. Everybody fucking talks shit, and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna go win a YCS undefeated.
We literally, so like me, McCabe, Jerry, Silverman, Tom Mack, Luke, Mark, everybody. We have Furman would come to, like, he would be around locals and all that stuff. And we'd always make fun of him because he didn't really have any tops or anything like that. Obviously no wins. And so we'd all make fun of him, like, oh, we all won. We all, like, we're all great. You're shit. And it'd be all fun and games. But then in like the span of a year or two, Furman just did everything you could do. He like won an ARG, won a YCS, won the Worlds, won like a bunch of other little side tournaments, and also just topped everything. And then it became so awkward because it was like, yo, this is the same kid that we literally made fun of for years, and he is better than all of us. Like, he's literally better than all of us by actual mathematical statistic. Like, statistically, he is just better. And it's crazy. He was the bottom of the barrel, and he crawled up from the bottom. Like, Silverman talks about all the time. He's like, he crawled up from the bottom and became the absolute best. And that's what happens.
Funny enough, we had a person in our group who's like that now. I met him in 2014. He was also a big DN warrior at the time. I just knew him as Furman's friend, which is Gunther.
Oh yes, he's another one because he's also from the same area.
Yep. So he was in the Skype group that we had and all that, and he didn't start topping I think until 2017. But he was kind of like me. Like, we would go to events. We would day two, we would bubble, all that, and now he's like the best player in the game. It's so funny to see.
Yes, it's crazy because I also knew him since he was very, very young. He lives in Allentown, PA, which is not too far from like Philly. And so I would see him at events all the time. Like, I see him at my local sometimes. And he was just like, whatever. But I know that he was also the butt of a lot. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.